The concept of superhuman organizations is one that I can never get enough of. I love the idea of a group of heroes being formed and taking on various threats to the world, whether it be the Aes Sedai and Ashaman from the Wheel of Time, or the Justice League and the Avengers. This concept has been done many times, sometimes in a simple fashion, and sometimes with a little more complexity to it. However, out of all of these stories, there has been only one such organization that exceeded all my expectations. An organization so epic and powerful, while also being intricate and nuanced. An organization that feels really natural and organic in terms of its structure. It is much more than simply a group of heroes, and there's a lot that's done to make it as complex and human as possible. This is largely due to the 10 orders within it. These orders that we go online and take quizzes about because they're so memorable. Whether it be the surges that each order is granted, the ideals that each order follow, and unexpectedly, even the name that each order is given, all these factors play a role in making this organization phenomenal. This is, in my opinion, Brandon Sanderson's magnum opus. After all, I'm talking about the Stormlight Archives' Knights Radiant. Windrunners, Skybreakers, Lightweavers, Truthwatchers, Willshapers, Stonewards, Bondsmiths, Elsecallers, Dustbringers, and Edge Dancers. Brandon creates terms that roll off the tongue really easily, and although you might not think much of it, I genuinely do think it's pretty important for making these orders and this magic system memorable. Personally, when it comes to magic systems, more than the technical side, I value the feel of it, the vibe. Yes, the mechanics are important, but as dumb as this sounds, I always like to imagine what it would be like if I had those powers, if I was a part of those orders. After all, it is a fantasy story. I love imagining myself in Roshar, lashing around as a Skybreaker with gravitation, or skating around like an Edge Dancer with abrasion, shaping stuff like a Willshaper with cohesion, all of that. If that imaginative, childish element isn't there, there isn't that fantastical vibe to it. Maybe that's just a me thing. However, to make sure that vibe is strong, those names, those titles are pretty important because they leave a lasting impression in your mind, and they could be the decider for whether or not you like the magic system. I also love that their titles aren't overcomplicated. They're simple and to the point, while also sounding really badass. They state exactly what the orders specialize in, and just in their names we can get a feel for them. Willshapers are the liberators, for example, so must be strong of will. They can also shape rock and solid objects, and their name could also imply their ability to shape the wills of those around them. The Skybreakers are even simpler. They fly and they destroy. They also kind of break their own oaths if you think about it, because when they reach the 5th ideal, they have to let go of their 3rd ideal, or break their ideal. Okay, I think I'm making this way more complex than it is, but I love that aspect to it as well. You can interpret some of this stuff for yourself, and overall, I think the naming scheme is just genius on Brandon's part. One little thing that I absolutely love is that the Dustbringers actually hate their name because it's so similar to Voidbringers, and they prefer to be called Releasers. I don't know, this little detail is so human. I just wanted to mention that because it's just so cool to me. Firstly, the magic system, Surgebinding, is what serves as one of the foundations. What's so awesome is this whole system of the surges, and each order having 2 of them. One surge gives specific abilities. Gravitation changes the gravity of you or others. Division destroys stuff. Cohesion helps alter shapes. You know how it is. But the beauty of the orders is how Brandon has incorporated the surges in a way that gives each order their own feel, and this is achieved through several subtle characteristics. For example, some of the orders utilize the same surge in different ways. Now, we actually don't know much about the details of how each order uses the surges in this way, but we do know that there are these differences. For example, the Truth Watchers and the Lightweavers were set to use illumination in different ways, while Bondsmiths and Windrunners use adhesion to accomplish different tasks. I think those subtle details really make each order unique with certain abilities. It also makes the organization as a whole feel natural and organic. Even in our world, not everyone is the same, and many peoples with the same skills utilize them in slightly different ways. I just think that's a really cool thing Brandon added, and it does a great service for the story. Another way they remain unique is linking ideals to surges. This is another little detail, and actually most of the orders don't do this, except for the Skybreakers and the Dustbringers. Their ability of division is restricted for those who achieve later ideals, while other orders just have both of their abilities at the same time. This makes sense because division is the ability that causes destruction, so it makes sense to safeguard this ability for those that are experienced and ready for it. The ideals are what morally separate the orders and truly give them their own identities. Like any organization, those differences in ideals are helpful and hurtful, which is great. I love that the Skybreakers, for example, the ones that follow the laws and uphold the codes, were like the police and kept checks on the other orders to make sure that the radiant powers weren't abused. However, it seems that they weren't the most popular with some of the other orders because they seemed to be acting all stern and strict. I wouldn't be surprised if when we get flashbacks we find out about certain orders getting along while others don't, because that's generally what happens with these kinds of groups. Of course, their ideals shape their duties, so I love how each order and even each Radiant fights for the right cause or justice in their own way. Windrunners were scouts and soldiers, Stonewards were fighters and soldiers, Truth Watchers were scholars, Will Shapers were liberators, and all of that. Their ideals shape these paths they wish to take, which is a really cool concept. Even better, we know that the ideals are individualistic. Although the core ideals are the same for everyone in the order, they can be adjusted slightly depending on the person's circumstances and interpretations. Within the Skybreakers, we know that ideologies can be different. People could swear to different laws, swear to different people, and have a different outlook on justice. The best example is Nail and Szeth. Szeth chooses to side with Dalinar while Nail with Odium, though they both follow the ideal of seeking out a greater truth. With Teft and Kaladin swearing their third ideals, there's an even smaller difference. Kaladin says, "I will protect even those I hate as long as it is right." Teft's words were, "I will protect those I hate, even if the one I hate most is myself." Again, at its core, this ideal is the same, but depending on what you went through and how you better yourself, the ideal varies. I think that's the best part of the Knights Radiant, and why they're such a well-executed concept. Just in the one order there is nuance and a difference of opinion, which is much more realistic than all of them being the exact same. It's a beautiful dynamic, and something I've honestly not seen executed anywhere this well. Although right now in the story the Skybreakers have defected and fight for Odium, I really do hope that by the end, whenever we have our epic final battle, that the Knights Radiant all unite and fight under their single banner. Whether it be Dalinar bringing them together with his bondsmith powers, or Szeth becoming a beacon of hope, I really hope that we see them all as one unit fight for Roshar. Because at the end of the day, no matter how different they are, no matter how different their ideologies, the orders of the Knights Radiant have one ideal which unites them all at their core. An ideal that consists of the most memorable, Simple, self-explanatory, and bone-chilling words. An ideal that formed this group all those years ago, and the ideal that resurrected the Radiants when Roshar needed them the most. Life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and liking and all that good stuff. Other than that, I guess I'll see you on the next one.